The melting on the 50 series gets even worse. RX 9000, we have some information from AMD directly, and Strix Halo got benchmarked. Oh boy! Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Friday, February 14th, 2025. Happy Valentine's Day to those who celebrated. Happy not that to those who don't. In 2 weeks' time, we will be drawing the winner for our RTX 5090 giveaway PC over on twitch.tv/UFD Tech. You can head on over there to find out how to enter into the PC giveaway of the 9800X3D 96GB RAM system that we will be giving away to one of you lucky viewers. We got the MSI Gaming Trio 5090 in yesterday, then I got selected by Newegg to finally buy one. So that's the one that'll be going into the gaming PC because I'm keeping the Founders Edition inside of my PC. But I'm minorly concerned about, what the cable situation is in my PC. So far been great, rocking a 4090, then a 5090. Cables are fine, no melting as far as I'm aware. But for the first time ever, it's not just the 90 class cards that are having the melty. There is now a report of an 80 class card that is having this problem, with more reports of other 5090 cables that have been melting. A daisy chain of extension cables is happening on an EVGA power supply. This looks to be really rough, definitely something that should likely be avoided. It seems like having multiple cables connected to each other is a way to potentially increase your risk at the current moment, even though we don't know the initial cause of the melting cables. We just know that there's not enough safety features there to prevent it once something does go wrong. However, the 5080 has now been detected to potentially have a melting issue. This is an Asus 5080, so this is a third-party one, and it didn't melt on the GPU side. Instead, it melted on the power supply side using an Asus ROG power supply. So for the longest time, it was just thought that the 90 class cards were the ones subjected to it because the 4090 was pulling 450 plus watts of power, the 5090 is pulling 575 plus watts of power, and that's really where the issues are gonna lie. When you were on the 4080 or 4080 Super, there wasn't, as far as I was aware, any report of those having the issue because they were in the lower 300 watt TDP. 5080 bumps that up a little bit though, gets you in that 360, potentially even more if you're using an overclocked card, and that appears, at least in one instance, to be causing a problem. And there was an electrical engineer who has worked at Gigabyte and Intel who posted on Reddit just kind of his evaluation of what he thinks that these cables should be rated for. And by their estimation, it should be no more than 375 watts, given the safety margin that we have on something like the 6 and 8 pin connectors that we used previously. Their safety margins, if you translate those to what we have with the 16 pin power connector, it should be 375. So you would need two of these to run an RTX 5090 safely within good margins of not having issues. So that appears to be where we're at right now. Things are just confusing at the moment. What's causing it to happen in certain instances, what's causing it to not happen in many instances. We're looking to get to the bottom of that. And you know who is actually a key part in that right now? Today's video sponsor, Falcon Northwest. This is one of the reasons I love having them as a sponsor, because not only will they build you a PC that's good for you, whether that's the internals or the externals, they're also good for the entire PC enthusiast community because they've been around for 30 years dedicated to building gaming PCs for the general audience, and that is where a lot of their testing has been coming in for the RTX 5090 and the melting issues. They saw Drew Bauer's video and then they made sure to go out, because they have access to a ton of Founders Editions of the 5090s, they have tons of access to different power supplies and different systems. They ran their tests and they found that they couldn't really find any variation in voltage, but they're still testing. We saw them do this with Intel's 13th and 14th gen instability issues and issue patch notes for their customers before Intel even said there was a problem, and now we're seeing them test NVIDIA's side as well because they're for you as the customer. And that's why I'm not worried about running a 5090 Founders Edition inside of my Falcon Northwest Talon, because I know they have my back. 3-year warranty, 1 year of overnight support. Well, they'll ship it back to them to diagnose things and then ship it back to you so that you're not without your PC for very long. I've got the Talon, it's the mid tower. You could throw a Threadripper workstation in there, or you can have it kitted out for gaming like I do. I've got a 14900K and an RTX 5090 in my system. But they also have the Frag Box, which is their portable on-the-go system. They also have the Tiki, which is their mini boy that can fit an RTX 5090 Founders Edition because of the slim size, but has been tested and does run in the Tiki. I've appreciated working with Falcon Northwest across the years. They've sponsored multiple of our charity streams, giving custom liveries to the frag box and the Tiki that we've given away. I've got Reese's face on my Talon at home. It's beautiful to see that not only do I have great internal components on my PC, but the external matches the reality of what we're trying to express with that computer. And you can have that too, and you can also buy it from a company that, you know, is having the entire community's back, not just yours. So you can check out Falcon Northwest at the link in the video description. Big thanks to them for sponsoring today's video, and just, you know, a big thanks to them for putting in the hard work of testing various different components to get to the bottom of what's going on for consumers. It's honestly incredible to see that, and one of the reasons why they've been in business for over 3 decades. And it feels like we've been waiting 3 decades for AMD to give us any indication of what the heck's going on with their RX 9000 series GPUs, because mum's been the word since January at CES, where they're like, we'll have an event for you at some points, and then it'll also launch in March in some dude's tweet. And now in some dude's tweet, we got the indication that they're gonna have the event February 28th, the day that we're giving away our 5090. You can go watch them over on YouTube for their product announcement of the RX 9000 series GPUs. The only thing I'm gonna tickle here is that David McAfee says that you can RSVP by subscribing to the AMD YouTube channel. That's not what RSVP means. You can still watch, that's not at. But AMD dropping this information just a couple hours after NVIDIA revealed when their GPUs are coming out. So we kind of already knew that the 5070 Ti was supposed to come out in February, as was the RTX 5070. But true to the rumors that we heard earlier, the 5070 has indeed slipped until March 5th, probably to help steal some of AMD's thunder. And the 5070 Ti is when we expected it as well, on February 20th. So all of the rumors and reports appear to have been substantiated. 5070 Ti on the 20th, 5070 on March 5th. We don't know exactly when the RX 9000 series is coming out. It probably is around that time frame from what we've heard, like the 5th or the 6th was the general idea. And so now it looks like NVIDIA is going for that. We'll see how that works out for them. But what's working for me is Sapphire's leaked version of the RX 9070 XT, their Nitro Plus. I love this GPU on the RX 7000, and they just dialed it up to 11 and made everything that was good about that GPU even better, with one caveat. It has this like burglar bar situation going over the RGB strip lighting that was found on the RX 7000 series version. Kind of reminds me of homes in South Africa where you're just keeping the house behind some gates. I love it. It looks beautiful. It looks industrial, but at the same time fun. Additionally, it has this backplate that goes over the heatsink on the backside of the GPU to hide the power connector. You get hidden cables routing through the back. However, one of the complaints that I think some people might have is that it is rocking a 16-pin power connector. Now, again, likely, depending on the TDP, this shouldn't be a problem if it's 300 watts or less. 16-pin power connector likely is going to be fine, no melting on this, but this is not something that's being forced by AMD. AMD is appearing to allow people to use 8 pins, 6 pins, and 16 pins. It's kind of dealer's choice, whereas NVIDIA is mandating 16 pins on all of their cards, even if it's gonna result in some problems. But the Sapphire Nitro Plus, that's my top tier card right now. Looking at that design, a 9070 XT, that's the one I want. If I was waiting out at a Micro Center, that's the one I would pick up. And hopefully Reece can save me the hundreds of dollars that I'm gonna need in order to buy one of those.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals on the internet. And now, confession time. I actually thought yesterday was Friday, and I initially recorded an entire bit where, you know, I wish you well for the weekend, and that still stands. You know, the sentiment's still there. But yeah, hey, deals. I'll jump into those because we have the EVGA XR1 Lite back, down a further $10 to be $19.99 for this external 1080p 60 capture card, making it a full $80 off, which is absolutely insane. But then next up, we have the Cooler Master Liquid 120L Core, with this little 120mm AIO CPU liquid cooler going for only $54.99, with the included promo code making it $10 off. And then lastly today, we have this Alienware 27-inch 1440p 360Hz OLED gaming monitor, which you can grab for only $649.99, making it $250 off. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But for now, go enjoy your real weekend, and I'll send you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Thanks, Reece. It looks like, in terms of deals on the next-gen GPUs, the 50 series, the 5070 Ti might be the best bang for buck that's releasing. Obviously, that's not much of a statement considering the 5080 is, people don't like it, and then the 5090 is just... 5070 Ti, however, coming in about 8% faster than the 4070 Tisper, or as I'm gonna start calling it because I just heard somebody say this one time, they called it the STI edition, the 4070 STI. I love that, Super Ti. Just, it's fantastic. So 4070 STI and 20% faster than the 4070 Ti in Blender testing, and in an OpenCL testing, it actually scores about the same as an RTX 4080 or 4080 Super, putting the RTX 5070 Ti very, very close to where the RTX 5080 lies. And considering the 5070 Ti is supposed to cost $749, a full 25% less than the RTX 5080, and you're bumping up to the previous generation $1,000 card, it looks like this might squeeze some of the weird room that's going on with the RTX 5080, especially because there's no VRAM difference. The 5070 Ti is gonna have 16 gigs of memory, and the 5080 also has 16 gigs of memory, but it's slightly faster. It's the slightly more speedy version of GDDR7, but I think for most people, that's not gonna make much of a difference because you're gonna be GPU limited more than you're gonna be memory limited. And so, at least based on this first initial preliminary benchmark from what we're seeing in OpenCL and Blender, which take with a grain of salt because this is not gaming. We gotta wait for full reviews, which are supposed to hopefully come out before the 20th next week. 5070 Ti looks like it's gonna just make the 5080 make no sense, which a lot of people would have already argued it doesn't make a ton of sense, but there we are. But what makes a lot of sense to me, and what gets my wallet crying because I want to buy it, is the Strix Halo CPU GPU combo, the APU of the Ryzen AI Max Plus 395. I hate that name, but I love the performance because we're now getting benchmarks of this Strix Halo chip, and it is looking incredibly good. So the Radeon 8060S GPU that's gonna be in this Zen 5 CPU combo is performing quite well with the 16 Zen 5 cores, 40 RDNA 3.5 compute units, and it's coming in with the Time Spy score that actually is very competitive to discrete desktop graphics cards. As you can see right here, the Radeon 8060S in a mobile form factor. We're talking this is likely the ROG Flow Z13. So just a mobile big gaming tablet is beating an RTX 3060. It's getting very, very close to a 4060 and a 7600, and it's significantly behind a B580. But again, I will remind you, this is in a single chip. This is an 120 watt TDP package on a single die that's gonna be able to be placed into mini PCs. It's gonna be in a freaking gaming tablet that Asus makes. I am so hyped for this thing. The performance that we're seeing out of this, I've been wanting AMD to do something like this. I mean, they've been putting their APUs in the PlayStations and the Xboxes, and now we're finally getting a PC version of that. Release date hopefully soon. That's what I'd love to see, but the performance is getting me salivating and get my wallet ready to just kind of spend itself wherever possible. And you guys spent your finger lives tapping into the comments of yesterday's episode of Hot News, so let's check out what you had to say. Augmented Gravity saying, considering the amount of 9800 X3Ds in the world, having 3 or so fail and 2 of them being user error, that's really not a bad failure rate at all. I would agree. We obviously can't verify that that's the actual failure rate. We obviously can't verify that. Maybe one of the things that's happening is now that they've been out in the wild, they're gonna start failing a little bit more. There's a lot of unknown details that are happening here, and how many people have had their PC die and they're not enthusiasts, they just have this situation, and so they just RMA it, they send it back, they don't investigate it themselves, and these things have been happening. There's so much unknown here. I don't think that this is necessarily the cause for mass hysteria, and doesn't appear to be as widespread as it was on the 7800 X3D, but also we can't just presume that it has a really low failure rate because it's only been reported once publicly on Reddit, right? Like that's just, it's not enough data. And then Woodax saying, I don't want an RTX 5090. I already own an air fryer. Yeah, but then you can play games and cook your food at the same time. It's a twofer deal, okay? It's multi-purpose, all right? It's multitasking. Gaming and cooking dinner at the same time in the same place. Think, Mark. And then Sven Wire is saying, funny how the stink of having bad drivers once, which NVIDIA also had in the past, seems to stick a lot longer than the stink of ripping people off using melted connectors, kneecapping GPUs with insufficient VRAM, soft locking features from being used on previous gen, and giving BS excuses as to why it wouldn't be possible to port having the insane power draw on their GPUs and behaving in a very anti-consumer way. I hear you. I thought about this because, you know, I was wondering why. Why does this? And the idea that I came to is that, number one, it wasn't bad drivers once. AMD had a history. It was multiple generations, and they're still lacking in the driver department. Maybe not in stability, but definitely in delivery of sustainable drivers for every generation at the same time. So there is an issue there, but ignoring that part, the stink of bad drivers affects normal people. I think that's the difference. Having a driver that causes your PC to stutter, to crash, to black screen, to hang up, to freeze, to lag, that is something that the average gamer will immediately notice. As they're playing, they're like, why is my AMD card acting up? They're not an enthusiast. They're not somebody who's gonna troubleshoot or diagnose. They're just gonna notice, hey, my PC is not behaving in a normal way. Whereas all of the things that you listed that NVIDIA is doing, besides the melting connectors, which appears to be limited at this point to the very, very rich enthusiasts, is all stuff only enthusiasts care about in terms of things that impact them directly as they're staring at their monitor. So kneecapping GPUs with insufficient VRAM, they're just gonna have limited FPS. They're not gonna have a worse experience than they're expecting. They're just gonna have lower numbers, and if they're not watching their FPS numbers in the first place, it's not gonna come up. Soft locking features, they don't want them. They're not using them. They're just trusting the automatic settings that get applied in their video games, giving BS excuses. People don't pay attention to what Jensen says or what the NVIDIA exec says. The vast majority of gamers, PC gamers, are not DIY enthusiasts who are building it themselves, who are paying attention to every release. They are people who buy pre-builts and then play games, and that's the extent to which they are in the PC ecosystem. And so the anti-consumer nature of NVIDIA, unless it starts directly affecting them, like melting power connectors, again, that's gonna be limited to the top 1% of financial investments. It's not something that they can specifically pinpoint in their lived experience, whereas bad drivers are a lived experience for all gamers. That was how I tried to figure out what you were saying. That's bad driver stink would impact normies a lot more. And then Reaf saying NVIDIA GPUs melted cables and AMD CPUs exploding while Intel CPUs killing themselves. This is 100% the worst timeline. I just want to fight against this, right? Like, as much as things are rough right now and as much as we're talking about the negative things that are happening, we are in the best timeline for PC stuff. What are you talking about? Very few 9800X3Ds are popping, but you could get a 5700X3D for very little money and get insanely fast gaming performance. You can get some of the older generation GPUs at a discount right now and get tons of performance out of those bad boys. You can have an incredibly fast system right now with extended driver support to a level we've never seen before, happening 7 to 10 years when it used to be kneecapped after that, and you get to have a 4K gaming experience on the cheap because you got X3D innovations. You got AMD coming in with their innovations with RDNA. NVIDIA might be charging out the nose for the RTX 50 series, but if you go back to RTX 30 series, you can get a fantastic price on some of the older generation GPUs. We're in a great timeline in terms of just looking at the broad spectrum of everything we've ever had in PC gaming. Things used to be significantly worse. Things used to be so segmented that when a new game came out, it had to support a feature your GPU didn't have. And so you had to buy the new GPU that actually supported that feature, and that's why you had to upgrade. Not because the game didn't run fast enough or the game didn't look pretty enough, but because it physically couldn't play the gosh dang game. The amount of choice that we have in various different GPU types, the amount of choice that we have in motherboards and cases and power supplies, the competition right now is quite high, right? Like, as much as AMD is losing on market share, RX 7000 series slapped. It was a great competitor to the RTX 40 series, and I'm excited for what the RX 9000 series is gonna bring. Intel, a little disappointing on the Core Ultra series, but they have been competitive. The 12th, 13th, and 14th gen, they were competitive. Instability issues did happen, but they got themselves worked out. AMD is just absolutely dominating when it comes to the CPU space. There's been healthy competition that I've just been enjoying to see. You have access to so much right now that when there's minor inconveniences, we turn those molehills into gigantic mountains. The RTX 5090 melting issue is impacting just a small number of people in terms of the overall gaming market. Most people can't get a $2,000 graphics card. The people who are looking to build a $500 to $1,000 PC are eating so good. To get the performance level you get for that is phenomenal. I don't want us to lose sight of that, all right? We have it so good. There are problems. I'm not trying to dismiss those. I do my best to call them out whenever they do happen here on Hot News, no matter which company it is. But at the same time, we got great games, we got great performance, better pizza, better ingredients, Papa John's. And then, I'm not saying your name, said, yes, Brett, I picked up a 12700K at Micro Center a few months back when it was priced at $170. I'm quite pleased with it. That's what I'm saying. 12700K for 170 bucks. You're eating good. You don't need to upgrade that. That was one of the points we made in our 9800X3D review, which you can check out right up there. While yes, the 9800X3D is an improvement from the 7800X3D, you will get more FPS if you are CPU bottlenecked. The vast majority of gamers won't notice. They're not gonna notice a 2 to 5% improvement. They're also likely not CPU bottlenecked because they're playing reasonably. With the 9800X3D, they probably have something like a 4070 Ti or a 7900 GRE and up, and so they're playing at 1440p or even 4K, and you're not typically CPU bound in those instances. And are you really going to notice if you turn off your FPS counter going from 550 to 600 FPS in CS2? Very, very likely not. The fundamental gaming experience isn't going to change very much. From a 12700K to a 9800X3D, can you show me on paper that the 9800X3D destroys the 12700K? You absolutely can, but blind taste test, turn off the FPS counters, put in a reasonable situation at 1440p high settings, you GPU bottleneck it because that's how most gamers play. Could you notice the difference between the Intel and AMD CPU? I guess it's likely not. All right, that's enough of, I guess, trying to get controversial comments to react to next week. Enjoy your PCs over the weekend, my friends. Enjoy your video games. I'll see you back here for more of the hottest tech news on Tuesday.